Hey, this is Russ. This is video number 2 in a series of YouTube videos that I'm putting together that show how I build Cigarbox ukuleles. What I want to talk about today is what you need to do to the box in order to make it work for the instrument, make it sound good. I want to add also that I do have video editing software I discovered on my laptop. All along I've had it, didn't know it. So I'm learning how to use that software. Should make these videos a little less boring and also make it easier for me to make the video, and I should be able to pack a lot more information into each individual video. So that being said, let's get to it. Alright, one of the first things you want to do is remove the hinges and the clasp from the box. I haven't taken the clasp off, but I've already taken the hinges off of this. And the reason for that is, one, you're going to want to have the box separated as you work on it. Now, you'll see that as we get into some further steps. And then two, in the end, the box is going to be sealed shut, so there's no reason for the hardware. You can leave it on as decoration if you want, but I tend to find that it can cause you scratching when you're actually playing the instrument. So what you want to do is, these are typically have cleats, and they're typically kind of like stapled in. So I'm not sure if the camera's going to pick that up, but if you look closely, there are cleats that are showing through on this side where it actually there's like a staple action. So you want to be careful when you pry them off. I use a precision screwdriver, and then once I get it free, I use these little hook pliers to try to kind of like pop it out. Now, it's very easy to damage the finish of the box when you do this, so try to make sure you're prying just gently, and take your time, be patient, and I'll get back to this after I get these pried off. Alright, you can see here that I've pried the top part of the hinges off, so I guess it's kind of hard to see on the video, but if you look at this more closely, see how see those little sharp pointed parts, those go all the way through the box. So you want to pull that off, and then again, just very carefully, delicately work the rest of that hinge out. Sometimes once it gets started, you can go ahead and use your hook pliers and just kind of like pull it the rest of the way out. Okay, here I am in my driveway because my wife decided to commandeer the man cave, which forced me out here because I can't compete with the television noise in there. But that's alright. It's a nice day here in North Carolina, and the lighting's better out here, so what the hell. When I filmed that last part, my wife walked in as I was finishing up the filming, and as soon as I turned the camera off, she looked at me and she said, "Nerd." So, after 30 years of marriage, I'm still a nerd. And I guess that's better than dork. That being said, she took over the man cave and she's binge watching reruns of Briscoe County Jr. So who's the real nerd? Anyway, I've got the hinges off of the boxes, as you can see. I did leave this little hook on here. It's not going to get in the way of construction, and it's not really going to affect when you play. It's not going to get in the way. So you have these boxes now. They're hinge free. Here's the Padron. You can see there's a little bit of damage there where I pried the hinges off, but that'll come off with just a little bit of sandpaper and some finishing oil. So it'll still look good in the end. So the next step is to measure the depth of the box cavity and then reinforce it with some support wood. Here's one that I've got working in process that kind of shows what I'm talking about. You want to go like 3/8 of an inch up to a 1/2 inch on your support pieces, and the reason you do that is because these boxes weren't made to handle the tension of a musical instrument, so you gotta beef them up a little bit. And what we're going to do is, on the Padron, because it's electric, I'll put a hole in the back reinforcement piece so that it can accommodate the pickup jack before I even assemble it. So that's what we're going to do. I recommend using like a soft pine, not balsa wood, but like a lighter pine, lighter weight pine, or even like a cedar. Cedar's a good wood too. It's actually a natural insect repellent. This is all pine. So what I'll do is, this is kind of thick, so I'll measure this out for the House of Windsor, and then once I understand how long it needs to be, then I'll just take it on my bandsaw and cut it in half. It'll come up with 2 3/8 inch thick pieces, and this piece already is 3/8 inch thick, so that's cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these for the end reinforcements. So what I do is just take a caliper, 6-inch caliper, and I'll measure the depth of the box. I like to use millimeters, just because it's easier to do the math that way. So I'll come in here and I'll measure the depth of this box. That's about 50 millimeters. It's better to go a little on the high side when you do this. Then you can always use a finger planer or sandpaper to make it fit to size. So on the Windsor, we got a 50 mil depth for the box, and then the top, it's got a, looks like a 15 millimeter top. So 65. I'm going to put a plus in there, millimeters, give myself a little bit of extra stock to work with, because the boxes aren't always truly square. So again, it's better to go a little oversized. Now the Padron, this is a kind of a unique box. The back end where the hinges were at is actually stepped, and then the front end wasn't. So the way this fits together is like this. So on this one, I just need to measure this depth right here, and that should be good for both sides. So we're looking at about 37 millimeters. So you can, again, you can use any tool that you have at your disposal to cut these pieces out. I'll be using my table saw to cut the length, and then in this case my bandsaw to cut this, to split this in half. You can also use a chop saw. I prefer not to use that for these small pieces, just because it leaves a really rough edge. Okay, so it was getting cold and dark outside, so I decided to continue working in the man cave with the Driscoll County Junior video in the background. So here you see me measuring the support parts for ripping. So I'm gonna rip them. And there I am using my digital calipers to measure that. And then of course a straight edge, just to make sure I've got a nice clean line. You don't have to use a straight edge if you have a good line, but I like to mark the wood anyways in process in case something goes wrong. When I'm cutting the pieces, I can see from the lines that I put on there that something went awry, which doesn't happen that often, but you know, it can. So just did the Windsor box, and then this is the rip mark for the Padron box. While I'm doing this, I have to say that I might have to cut this video short. I think my video editing software won't facilitate more than a 15-minute video. Okay, here's me on my table saw, just ripping these to the right width. And of course, I'm using a push stick. Always keep safety in mind. Wear safety glasses. Keep your fingers away from the blade. My fingers are actually between the blade and the blade guard when I'm making that cut right there. And of course, using the push stick to get it through the blade area. And then I'm going to measure the cross-cut dimension. So I did measure this out in millimeters, using my millimeter tape measure right there to mark where I want to cut these. Probably could have abbreviated this part of the video, and maybe it wouldn't have clogged up my video editing software, but I'm still learning how to use this software, so hopefully this video will still come through. I might have to post this on YouTube in low quality just to get it on. We'll see what happens here. But anyways, yeah, using the tape measure to mark them. and obviously taking my time doing so. So then the next thing I do is I use my vernier calipers, just kind of like a spacing caliper. I just want to measure the inside of the box. It's got a nice little lock screw on it, so I can position it in the right width and then lock it down, and then just come back and validate that the measurements are true. Again, these boxes aren't always like perfectly square, especially older boxes like this. They're from, I mean, these things are like 40, 50 years old sometimes. So, and they're made out of redwood and sometimes like a plywood or a pine. So they do have a tendency to possibly warp, I guess, depending on where they were stored or whatever. So just using my verniers right now to validate that my width markings are correct. So yeah, I'm showing it right there. That's how I do it. Press it up against the sides of the box and then just go back and validate that it's correct. Okay, so all is good. Oh, also I have this really cool 25-cent Edge 90 square I bought at a garage sale. I think you can buy those for like $1.50, but you know what? 25 cents, man. Can't complain with a good bargain like that. So then mark it off, indicate which side I want to cut, and then did the same with the Padron side supports. Marked. And then there's just some video of me doing a cross cut to get them to the right width or the right length to reinforce the box. So then, obviously, I don't have a rip guide for my bandsaw. I got like a 1955 bandsaw I got at a garage sale for, I guess I got it at auction. It cost me $25. It's an old Craftsman bandsaw, back when they made stuff to last, so obviously this one lasted. And you can see I'm doing the split. Oh, fast forward to the end of the split. I did go slow. That's something else I was taught by an old timer. If you're using a bandsaw, go slow. So basically, just have a piece of basswood there that I clamped down to use as a guide. So slapping the dust off there. There is some chatter from the blade. So in the next little part here, very bad angle and very bad lighting. It was getting kind of cold that night, but I wanted to get this thing cleaned up. So I took my belt sander outside and just basically sanded off with like some 60 grit and then some 120 grit to make it smooth, so that there wouldn't be that chatter inside. You want to make sure the insides are smooth.